Nintendo and the Pokémon Company have dropped a legal bombshell in an unexpected turn of events. The creator of Palworld, an independent game that became famous for being Pokémon with guns, are being sued for allegedly stealing the popular monster-catching gameplay from Pokémon. So how far down does this rabbit hole go? And is Palworld's independent developer Pocketpair really copying the industry leaders in creature collection? But what exactly is Palworld, and why is it in the middle of this intense legal dispute? Throughout this game, players must capture creatures known as pals. These creatures, unlike Pokémon, are equipped with guns and other weapons. I know, it sounds crazy. Could this be a case of David versus Goliath, or will Pocketpair have to deal with Nintendo's full legal force? Let's dissect everything, beginning with the main accusations that form the basis of this lawsuit. So what is Pocketpair being accused of by Nintendo and the Pokémon Company? Palworld is allegedly stealing important aspects of the Pokémon series. According to their claims. The lawsuit primarily targets Palworld's creature collecting mechanics, design resemblances, and general gameplay aspects that are far too similar to Pokémon for Nintendo to tolerate. Imagine taking Pokémon and adding a Wild West twist. Turns out Nintendo isn't a fan of cowboy pals. Nintendo claims in the legal documents that Palworld mimics many of the essential elements that make Pokémon what it is, going beyond simple inspiration. This includes the signature Pokémon gameplay elements of players interacting with the creatures and the methods by which these pals are captured, trained, and even used in combat. This is a company very protective of its IP, and Pokémon isn't just a game, it's a multi-billion-dollar empire, and any perceived threat to its dominance is taken very seriously. But here's where it gets interesting. While Palworld does feature a concept of monster catching, it adds a twist to make things a little different. Those creatures can use weapons, including guns. This has made Palworld stand out, but Nintendo and the Pokémon Company believe this added feature doesn't change the fact that its foundation is too similar to Pokémon, and they mean to defend their property. The lawsuit wants to halt sales of Palworld and seek financial compensation for the damages Nintendo and the Pokémon Company claim that they have caused. They claim that Pocketpair is wrongly profiting itself on concepts and ideas developed by Pokémon. And if past cases are any indication, Pocketpair might be looking at a payout big enough to make even a legendary Pokémon faint. Whether or not they have a case depends on how the court interprets similarities between the two games. But one thing is clear. Nintendo isn't messing around. Now, Pocketpair has responded to all these allegations, and we'll get their version of the story. Though it's worth noting that this isn't the first time Nintendo has gone after a game they feel has stepped on their toes. They have made a name for themselves in ferociously defending all of their brands, and Pokémon is no different. Pocketpair didn't waste any time responding to the lawsuit filed against them. In fact, immediately after the news broke out, they issued a statement. What did they have to say? Simply put, they would deny that Palworld copies Pokémon in any way, and that their game is an absolute creation of an original game with its own unique features and other ways to play it. Pocketpair's argument will be that Palworld takes up the concept of monster collection and brings a twist into something that was never seen before. Monsters helping you build factories, fighting with you using weapons, and having intense battles with much more realistic survival tactics. This, among other features, pushes the game into an entirely different direction compared with the classical formula of Pokémon. Of course, they've also spoke of the broader issue at play, how indie developers are sometimes targeted by bigger companies for alleged IP violations. Pocketpair's concern was that this lawsuit would set an example that might discourage smaller studios from experimenting in genres dominated by larger franchises. They really seem to believe that their case has much to say about the delicate balance between inspiration and infringement in the gaming world. And they're not going down without a fight. Pocketpair comforted their fans by continuing to assure support for Palworld, despite their lawsuit, and thanked the community for the overwhelming support in light of the controversy. Sounding very sure of their chances, but realistically going up against Nintendo and the Pokémon Company is no small feat. Pocketpair's statement acknowledged this, but underlined how the company was committed to ensuring that indie developers are not unfairly barred from pursuing creative ideas, simply because there's some surface-level similarity with big-name franchises. While they may defend themselves, many fans and followers within the industry wonder how Pocketpair will finance a legal battle against such a giant. Cases in court at this level take serious financial backing, and honestly, there's no doubt that Nintendo can afford to drag this case out for as long as necessary. But let's take a closer look at who Pocketpair is. Despite not being a household name, Pocketpair is a small independent game studio based in Japan that has made waves in the gaming community with their innovative and quirky games. Its genre-bending open-world survival role-playing games such as Craftopia quickly gained attention. The ability to mash together superficially unrelated gameplay mechanics into something balanced became Pocketpair's signature style. This mix-and-match approach was what caught the attention of players, and is the same spirit that birthed Palworld. That same sense of wild experimentation was taken even further with Palworld. They literally dreamed up a game where players collect creatures, a lot like Pokémon, but with a ridiculously awesome twist. These pals pack heat and moonlight as factory automation specialists and combat sidekicks, because what's cuter than cuddly creatures with guns? This game takes that anything goes vibe to a whole new level. Creature collecting? Check. Survival? Check. Guns? Oh, absolutely. But that uniqueness put them on Nintendo's radar. For its part, Pocketpair says Palworld is its own game, and its creature collecting elements are part of a much broader experience. Though there's no denying that there are some surface comparisons with Pokémon, Pocketpair makes the case that the gameplay mechanics and tone are entirely different. Despite being a small studio, Pocketpair has built up a remarkably enthusiastic community around it, just because of how much players love the chaotic mashup they uniquely bring into games. That's probably one reason why the lawsuit has sparked such a strong reaction from their fans. For many, this is creative freedom pitted against corporate control. But shall we dive into some of Nintendo's past legal disputes to maybe explain what could happen to Pocketpair in this case? Now, this isn't exactly Nintendo's first rodeo. When it comes to lawsuits, Nintendo and the Pokémon Company have a history of ferociously defending their property, especially when it involves Pokémon. From small-time fan projects and unofficial merchandise to other video games claimed to be infringing its trademarks and copyrights, it's all been treated to lawsuits over the years. One notable case happened in 2019 when the Pokémon Company sued two individuals for leaking information on Pokémon Sword and Shield before their release. They aggressively pursued the case, and the leakers were eventually ordered to pay almost $150,000 each. But the message was clear: Pokémon-related content is sacred, and they will go to great lengths to protect it. Nintendo itself is famous for taking down projects made by fans. One of the most well-known cases involved AM2R, a Metroid 2 fan-made remake. Despite this being a work of love from a dedicated fan, Nintendo took swift legal action and had the game taken down from the internet. This wasn't an isolated incident, though, as literally countless other fan games, mods, and ROM hacks based on Nintendo properties have received the same treatment. While the community often shows frustration at these actions, to Nintendo, they are necessary in maintaining control over their brands. It doesn't end there, though. Nintendo has even targeted ROM hosting sites. In 2018, it sued Love ROMs and Love Retro, two key players in distributing ROMs of classic Nintendo games, for a whopping settlement of over $12 million. This once again shows that Nintendo is not shy to pursue legal action, even against individuals or smaller companies. When it comes to Pokémon, the Pokémon Company is sensitive to anything that may weaken the value or integrity of its franchise. The Pokémon brand extends far beyond video games, from trading cards to animated series, movies, toys, and endless merchandise. With such a massive global presence, protecting the brand is a top priority for the company. Another example is the year 2015, when the Pokémon Company filed a lawsuit against an unofficial Pokémon party that was supposed to happen at the PAX Prime Gaming Convention. The event was merely hosted by fans, and there was no direct financial gain to be made from the event. Nonetheless, the Pokémon Company sued the organizers for using trademarks without permission, and the event got cancelled faster than a Netflix show in its first season. Given this history, it shouldn't surprise anyone that a lawsuit was filed against Palworld. Both Nintendo and the Pokémon Company have gone out of their way multiple times to draw a hard line in the sand when it comes to their IP. And while many indie game developers have tried to put out games that feel pretty familiar, any game that gets too close to the Pokémon formula runs a pretty valid risk of being caught in their legal crosshairs. Whether or not Pocketpair can defend their game, or if there'll be another casualty with Nintendo in court, is yet to be seen. But you may wonder, how's the public taking this lawsuit? The reaction from the public and fans to this lawsuit has unsurprisingly been mixed. On one side, you have Nintendo and Pokémon fans, who wholeheartedly believe the lawsuit is justified. To them, Palworld does somewhat bear a striking resemblance to Pokémon, especially in ways the creatures, pals, are caught and trained. Many view this as Nintendo and the Pokémon Company doing what they have always done, protecting their IP. With the track record they have, it's of no surprise that hardcore fans would take their side, arguing that the similarities between the games cannot be brushed off. On the other side are indie game enthusiasts and a pretty loyal fanbase of Pocketpair who are rallying for Palworld. For them, this is another case of a large corporation bullying a smaller developer for being creative. They say while Palworld has a creature collecting element, it is far from the tone, gameplay, and mechanics of Pokémon. The fact that Palworld involves guns, factories, and survival elements makes it clear to them that it's not simply a Pokémon clone. Many fear that if Nintendo and the Pokémon Company win this case, it would set a harsh example, making it much more difficult for smaller developers to try out new ideas in genres dominated by larger companies. Honestly, the public's response might go either way, but let's take a moment to see the facts and determine which way this case might go, and why it's so important for Palworld and the gaming industry as a whole. While this case can take a while to conclude between Nintendo, the Pokémon Company, and Pocketpair, for this much at stake, legal battles can linger on for months if not years. While Pocketpair has made it clear they plan on defending Palworld, it isn't the easiest task to stand in the way of corporate giants such as Nintendo and the Pokémon Company. Even assuming that Pocketpair actually has a good case, they would still require the financial and legal resources to see it through. What's at stake here is not just Palworld's future, but also what this might mean for the gaming world and its smaller indie developers. This case against Pocketpair can turn out to be a discouraging nightmare for indie studios, who then might be potentially afraid to try creating genres or mechanics that are similar to top franchises. Indie developers often take inspiration from existing genres and games and add their creative spin to those, but if big companies press down on them too tightly, it would risk depriving the industry of innovation and creativity. This case is also important because it calls into question what represents infringement of property in the gaming world. Games often use similar mechanics. How many first-person shooters have similar elements? Yet the majority of them don't end up in court because of it. Inspiration and copying have always been a gray line in creative fields. This case might determine once and for all where that line is drawn. If Palworld is found to infringe on Pokémon, it could make other developers reconsider the way they design games going forward, particularly in genres dominated by big-name franchises. Some fans believe that such actions are unfair, particularly in cases involving indie studios of considerably smaller size. And if the public weighs in heavily on the side of Pocketpair, it may make Nintendo and the Pokémon Company rethink their strategy in light of a possible backlash from the gaming community. To Pocketpair, this case seals the fate of Palworld, where losing may result in the removal of the game from sale with a hefty amount to pay in damages. However, Pocketpair might benefit from the attention this case receives. They've found themselves in the spotlight again as a result, and even if they lose, the publicity might help them attract a greater audience. More broadly though, this lawsuit serves as an example of the constant tension that exists in the video game industry between corporate control and creativity. One thing is certain, this case will be fascinating to follow, regardless of your stance on the brave underdog Pocketpair versus the powerful Goliaths, Nintendo and the Pokémon Company. The outcome could not only determine Palworld's future, but also how independent developers handle legal issues in a world of massive franchises. But for now, this concludes the most recent conflict involving Nintendo, the Pokémon Company, and Pocketpair. This case is more than just a legal dispute. It represents a conflict between corporate power and artistic freedom. Will the Pokémon Empire prove to be too strong for Pocketpair's Palworld, or will it prevail in the battle? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, every gamer has to be aware of this case. In the comment section below, please share your opinions. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on this story.